Silence! Silence! Pump! You're now listening to the Street Science Podcast. You are now listening to the Street Science Podcast. Don't touch that dial. You know what it is. It's the Street Science Podcast. You are now listening to the Street Science Podcast. Hosted by Michele Garabato, Cletus Cassidy, and yours truly, Skrilla Sam. You know what time it is. It's time for Street Science Podcast. Shut the fuck up while this podcast is on. You know what it is. It's my favorite show, bitch. Shut the fuck up while this podcast is on.
And this is Street Science, and we're talking about homelessness in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we're talking with my good friend, Jonathan Blackman, who is a director of a program. That is what I had said before. I didn't say the program or anything like that. You don't really have to. But I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and let us know what you do, and then we'll kick it off from there.
Hi, Michael. I am Jonathan Blackman. I'm a certified drug counselor, and I'm the director, as you said, of a program for families that are homeless, and it's a shelter. The purpose of the shelter and the programs we provide are, residential services and housing and all the obstacles around housing that people may have, be it work, income, debt, eviction, and even as far as education or whatever we can provide to help people have the most options when they are seeking housing, which all of these folks are coming from either other shelters or their car, the street. Some of them camp out. They all have kids, and they're people from all walks of life, all age ranges. As far as parents, actually, there's grandparents too. What's nice about San Francisco, and the referral system that they have in place is they decide what a family is, and that can be very broad. So we have families with single parents, we have same-sex parents, we have grandparents, we have brothers and sisters, and all kinds of family complex situations who are coming off the street into our center.
What's the point of entry? Like, where do these families start? Like, how do they get into the program?
So there is a central access point now in San Francisco that's fairly new. It used to be you would go to the shelters individually, and now Compass is the organization in San Francisco that is contracted to be the hub of all of the incoming families. Everybody who's homeless, Compass will provide the services of referring you to the next agency, shelter, and they also provide housing services.
And so when a family goes into Compass, like a family just walks in a Compass, a mother and two kids, and they fill out whatever paperwork. How quickly do they get into some type of shelter or housing?
So they get assessed, and from the assessment, it's determined where best to place them. Of course, that relies on availability of the space and the type of housing they're going to need, and that can take. It can be immediate. If a family's need is great enough, they're prioritized higher on the scale, and it could be immediate if there's availability. But some families wait online. I've heard a few months. Usually it's, I think, maximum 90 days that somebody should wait. But while they're waiting, there are shelters they can get into that are congregant setting. It's not ideal for a family. So the kind of shelter I direct is known as a private room. So to get into our shelter, because it is there's a greater demand for the private room shelters versus the congregant setting, where it's mats on the floor and families are next to each other. There's a longer wait because there's a greater demand for that type of service that we offer.
Right.
So families are, we have vacancies every other week on average. I'd say we've been open since October, so this is our 10th month. And the results have been very good. People have been leaving early because they get 6 months because they're getting housed. So that's very promising. It's very exciting because when we opened this agency as a homeless shelter, I was very pessimistic about our prospects of getting people housed. But in fact, families are prioritized in the city, and there are options for folks to get housing through vouchers and subsidies. And then they're matched up with a housing specialist who has the key to the kingdom. They know where all the units are, and so they just send people out to see, and if they say okay, then they're housed relatively quickly. You have to be motivated.
That was a good one. The housing specialists hold the key to the key to the housing.
Absolutely, absolutely, because they get them. In the past, folks would get vouchers, and which is Section 8. It used to be called Section 8. Now it's a voucher. And they would look around for a long time and not find anybody, a landlord who was willing to rent. And so the competition in this town is so great for rental space that people with vouchers, and that's all they had, were having a very difficult time. Previous to the shelter, we were transitional housing, and folks were struggling with finding places. But now with the city matches you up with a housing specialist, they make it happen. They have a list of available properties. New properties have been opening up. People are moving into brand new spaces, 3-4 bedrooms sometimes, because they have 3 to 5 kids, which is about average for the shelter. We have larger families, and these spaces are very hard to come by, and they're getting them for 30% of their income. And if they have no income, then they don't pay anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What is
so zero? Yeah.
What like working in there, seeing things on the micro level, but to the macro level? Like, what do you see? Is there like a trending reason that you see that these families are becoming homeless, or were they always homeless? Did they grow up in a homeless family? Which I know that's not the case, but what are you seeing a trend, or is it just all various different random reasons? Or
so a number of folks I'm meeting are chronically homeless, which actually in San Francisco now is defined. Chronically homeless, you can't have children and be chronically homeless. It falls out of the definition. But to me, they're chronically because if you've been on the streets or going couch to couch for 2 years or more, that's chronically homeless. That's and a number of people are in that situation. And come to us, and we try to break the cycle. That's our goal, is to get them out of the system and into their own house.
Do you guys talk about I'm just wondering how do they get into that cycle? How did they end? Do they ever talk about how did they end up homeless? What happened? Is there is it because of the housing crisis? Is it because of mental health usually, or is it drug addiction usually you're seeing? Or
something happens to them and their situation has changed, and it could be they're evicted, it could be that they have moved, it could be that they lost their job or got sick. All of these things happen, or they moved here. There's a great number of migrants that are living in the shelter, and they have escaped from a dangerous situation where they were living, and they've come here and they can't get these. These are the hardest cases.
Wow.
Are the folks who are in a migrant situation. They cannot get any benefits. They can't get cash. They can't work because often in these cases there's multiple kids, and they're young, and they have to watch the kids. If it's a single parent, it's very difficult to get work, let alone be able to work when you have a number of small children. So these are the hardest cases.
Childcare.
Because if you have no income, you have fewer options. The less income you have, so one of our jobs is to increase the income. I'm not sure if I may have gotten away from your question, though.
No, you kind of answered it. I was just looking for you had listed the reasons, and I was wondering if you had seen like a trending reason, but I guess that there's not really. It's just it's multiple, individualized. Basically,
it's usually an event that has taken place that changes their situation. They lose their housing, and then if you're in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just San Francisco. If you're in San Francisco, it's very hard to find affordable housing and compete for that housing.
Right.
So there are lotteries in which people sign up, and the chances are remote depending on how many people sign up versus how many spaces there are. It's a lottery, just like playing the state lottery. You are competing against people, and the odds are hard. But now there are places that are opening up. There's one on Mission. There's one in Oakland. There's a number of spaces that are, buildings are being reconditioned or built, and folks are. I know this because the families are starting to get notices to come and see the place, and then go through the process of getting accepted, and they have to apply. But they're being handpicked. So I get a notification that this family has been matched with this unit, and it's not a lottery as much anymore. It's more the people with the greatest need are being directed to the specific place that is going to be their home. So you get 6 months in the shelter, and you can get an extension if you get a voucher or subsidy. And the voucher or subsidy lasts 90 days. But the clock won't start ticking until you're assigned a housing specialist. So that part, as I said before, the keys to the kingdom, the housing specialist comes with the voucher, and the voucher will not begin. And sometimes there's a shortage of housing specialists because it's pretty intensive work. They meet with this. It's often a social worker, but it's somebody who is an expert or has a very good resource list of available spaces, and the process moves fairly quickly. And that is what's exciting and that's happening in San Francisco, is that to watch the process of people getting housed. They're really getting housed. People are getting help. They're getting out of the system. They're moving off the street, hopefully permanently.
So with homelessness being the topic, and the Bay Area and San Francisco, it's like a super political topic as well, I think. And so with that being said, like, are you running like into any politics or anything like that, being the director of the program and dealing with, money, and, I don't know where the funding is coming from for the program, but are you dealing with anything like that or seeing any of the politics, in your, your job?
The money comes from the county.
Okay.
And as because of that funding and a contract that goes along with that through the county, I'm working with the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing, HSH, which is run by an appointee of the former mayor, Jeff Kaczynski. He's the director or the executive director of HSH. And it's a political body. He's a pretty public figure. He's in the press all the time, and he's running a pretty large department, and they have a very large budget. And I meet once a week with, I'm sorry, every other week with other heads of shelters and a representative who runs the meeting from HSH. And there's politics involved. There's tempers run pretty high at times, although it's actually a very calm meeting. I'm just saying that people are very passionate about what they're doing.
Right.
There's a lot of dedicated service people who are working in nonprofits under the funding and contract of the city and county. Of course, there's politics involved. We have a new mayor, but I don't see much of that. I'm kind of on the
Are you more on the clinical side, would you say?
Oh yes, the clinical side. That's it. We're the service provider.
Service provider, totally.
I was going to think of a military term. A grunt. I'm on the front line.
Well,
I'm on the front.
Okay, well, I would say me as being a case manager, peer mentor, even peer supervisor, like you being a director, I would say that you would not be a grunt in my eyes.
Okay, so I see both sides. I see the clinical side and I see the political side. I meet with members of the county, the department that oversees us.
Don't be shy.
Whoa, but really, on a serious note, all this podcasting, I've lost my voice. You ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get my podcast off, I couldn't figure it out. There was all these things, Audacity and everything else. And then I heard a podcast with Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said Anchor FM. Dude, Anchor FM is the one-stop shop for everything. Recording, hosting, distributing your podcast. It's all 100% free. They use a microphone on your phone if you need to, and they have great editing tools on there. Everything. If you just want to start with something simple, this is the way to go. If you want to get more advanced, like I started getting, they do that. They hook you up with sponsorships. They hook you up with ways to get paid, all that stuff. All you got to do to get started is go to anchor.fm/start. Join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. Can't wait to hear your podcast.
Okay, so, dude, that's super interesting. I love the reason I ask about the politics, not because I just want to hear random gossip or something or get some controversial info. I just love hearing about all those aspects. I found it super interesting when I was working in the city, just meeting with police officers at like a CIT meeting and stuff. It's a lot of that stuff is like really political because it's like behind mental health police officer involved mental health shootings, things like that, which spur things like that, which homelessness, talking about it, it's just all over the news all the time, and it's a lot of people talk about it. And gentrification and housing and the housing crisis in the Bay Area, it's all big topics, and I just found it super interesting.
If your audience is interested in knowing more about or seeing any of the politics or how policy is driven or made, there's regularly city meetings, public meetings. They're in City Hall. There's often groups at the Corrette Auditorium in the San Francisco Public Library, and you can go and sit in and listen to folks in the community, folks from the agencies, stand up and talk about issues that are going on. So there's lots of, if anybody's interested in the politics side, there's policy meetings and just hearings all the time at City Hall. You can just look online at hsh.ca.gov, I think, is the web address for the agency that oversees all of and funds the shelters in the city. So folks who are in the shelter are being housed rather quickly. They're leaving early. We're overcoming the obstacles that help them to have more options for housing, and they have 6 months in order to find the housing if they don't have a voucher or subsidy. So Some of the folks will stay up to a year. We haven't been open a year yet, so I haven't seen anybody go longer than that. But as long as they're participating and putting in the effort, they're getting housed.
It's great.
It's very exciting. They get housed beyond, within the Bay Area typically, but folks move out further, and the vouchers now, which used to be county specific, now are they're automatically able to use it anywhere in the state.
Oh wow, that's nice. That's a big upgrade.
It's a very big change that lowers the barrier.
Big time
for people to get housed.
Tape away. It takes a lot of red tape out of that.
Right.
Well, for my listeners out there, I'll disclose a little bit here. Jonathan is actually my boss now. I took a position working with him, so I'll be taking a caseworker position over there at the shelter with him. So you might be hearing more from Jonathan. And actually, I'm going to get some, find some of these answers out over there with Jonathan. See what's really going on over there.
You're going to get introduced to what's happening in this subject firsthand and very quickly. So you're going to become very knowledgeable very quickly.
I can't wait. I'm super pumped.
We're very excited to have you too.
Oh, yeah. All right, everybody. So this is our first segment on street science here, targeted towards our nonprofit sector fellow peers out there, case managers, counselors, therapists, activists, advocates, all of that out there. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you have any comments or even questions and whatnot, you can go ahead and leave a voice message on the Anchor app here. And if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or anything else, you can also look us up on the Anchor FM app, or you can go anywhere like on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those spots. You'll find Street Science. All right, Jonathan, I'm going to ask you this question as we go out. Any words of advice to a homeless family in the Bay Area listening in right now? Words of advice. If you yourself or know somebody who is couch surfing or sleeping outside or maybe about to lose your housing, contact Compass at 995 Market Street. Now they're about to move, so look up Compass Access Point on Google to find. They're just about to move their offices, but contact them. You can walk in, get assessed, and be on your way to being the hustle of the week, the street science hustle of the week. Since Jonathan brought up that you have to go to Google to go to Compass Access, the street science hustle of the week. If you're out there and you're a homeless family or you're low income and you don't have a cell phone and you can't even get internet access right now, you can walk yourself down to the GA office anywhere downtown, Oakland downtown, San Francisco downtown. You go down to the GA office and you're going to see these cell phone booths out there. All you need is your ID, and they're going to sign you up with a cell phone. Make sure, though, there's a couple knockoff ones that are going to burn you, and the cell phone's going to turn off in 30 days. Make sure it's legit, so do your homework when you go over there. But they're going to give you a cell phone right there, activate it, and they're going to give you some data. They're going to give you some data, and you take that data, and you go on the web browser on the phone, and you go to Google, and then you go, where do you go to, Jonathan, on Google?
Compass Access Point. San Francisco, Compass, COMPASS. It's also known as the Access Point. If you need housing, that's where you go to find it. Also, Catholic Charities and Hamilton Family Center. These places all provide services and will refer you back to Compass. And one way or another, get off the street, get out of the car, get off the couch, and get housed.
There it is. The hustle of the week is a cell phone with data and a voucher to live anywhere in California. All right, Jonathan, it was great. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at work, and we'll talk more about the show.
Thanks for inviting me on, Michael. It was a great show.